Hello, hello.
Oh, wow. I'm seeing you live too.
Great.
That's different. Hi, everybody. You know what I wish we had? I wish we, I'm sure there's a way to do it, but we are such amateur hour here with our live presentations. I wish we could have some like music,
Oh, that's,
like pre-music.
yeah. That's all possible.
Yeah.
You can have like a whole intro trailer play.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah, you can do a bunch of stuff.
Imagine how we'd mess that up.
Oh, yeah. You would just hear our trailer for 2 hours and be like, then you just hear me in the background. I don't understand. Why can't it work?
And everybody would be like, sound's low. Sound is off. Fix your sound.
Is it really?
No,
okay.
No, I'm just saying
that would be the complaint.
Typically how our live streams start.
Yeah. I say this jokingly because it does eat me up inside.
Yeah.
But like I almost take pride in the fact that we hold our normal like Sunday videos and what we do here at such high level, and yet we suck so hard at streaming.
Well, I mean, it could be worse.
Yeah.
We have gotten better. I think most of you watching who are here are especially our OGs. You know this. It has gotten better. There was once a time where we had our frame, like the frame was like inside.
It was 4x3.
Yeah, shrunk inside the viewing box. Those were some good times.
Yeah.
If you can't get your super chat to work, Alan, I don't know why that is. I see your first one. You started us off, with one before we actually went live, but maybe, I know you're cruising. Maybe you hit an international spot. I don't know.
Yeah, Alan started with love the show and all you do for the community. Happy Friday from a fellow sulking Longhorn.
Yeah, Alan. I didn't really expect to win, but then they gave us a few glimpses of hope, as the Longhorns love to do. And then just were like, you know what? Yeah, let's just not this year. Maybe next year.
Not this year.
But hey, at least Quinn Ewers has officially
exited stage right.
Hit the draft.
Hit the draft.
Ugh. I don't know about you. If you're anybody out here or fans of the Longhorns other than Alan and myself, glad to see that era end. So glad.
Poor guy.
Third down, best down.
I swear, yeah. It's like I feel like all season under him and Sark's play calling, it's like let's just spot the other team 2 downs. We don't even need first and second. Who needs them?
Oh, you know what I love? Sorry for the football talk, but we're just kind of, letting people get situated. We've only been doing this for 3 minutes. Mm-hmm. We've got 4 hours to go. So I'm
4 hours?
It's a joke. I'm gonna have a little Longhorn football talk. What was I gonna say? That's what happens
when you interrupt yourself.
When I interrupt myself. And I lose my train of thought. Oh, look, I got an snap. Something went wrong. God damn it. YouTube. What? He couldn't hack it at Ohio State. You know what? Obviously he couldn't, Boomer Sooner. Oh, please.
Oh, they were terrible this year.
You guys.
That was, I'm not an Oklahoma fan, but boy, even I felt bad for them this year. They were terrible. All right. Well,
real quick, who do you think's going to win?
Oh, I don't care.
Ohio's. You got it.
I really don't care.
I saw you answer that in an AMA, and I was like, what a crap response. Just pick.
I think Ohio State's going to blow through Notre Dame like poop through a goose. I really do. I think they're just going to...
I don't know. I thought Ohio State was gonna be like no chance to beat them, and we came close. So you know what? I'm gonna make a prediction. I'm predicting Notre Dame wins.
All right.
So.
I don't like either team, but I have a feeling Ohio State is going to be playing very angry, and I think they're going to absolutely punish Notre Dame. I just do.
Nah.
All right.
Hold on real
Yeah.
quick. Max. Hey, Max. Max Power 78. I'm pretty bummed about David Lynch
Yeah.
as well. I don't know if any of you guys saw the news, but
He passed away.
David Lynch, who was a famous director,
Mm-hmm.
and passed away. My first David Lynch film was Wild at Heart with Nick Cage
Yeah.
and was it Laura Dern?
I think
Yeah,
so.
Laura
Yeah, I
Dern,
think
right?
so.
Someone confirm that for me in the chat box. But
Yeah. Yeah,
what
that
was your favorite Lynch? I mean,
Gosh, I mean, to be perfectly blunt, I have not kept up with his filmography since leaving school, because he was David Lynch is one of those directors that you kind of find in like your latter high school, early college career, and you sort of are not forced, but it's strongly recommended, especially if you go to a university like mine. It's strongly recommended that you partake. So to tell you the truth, I couldn't tell you the last David Lynch movie that I saw.
Dune.
What?
Dune.
Dune was
I'm pretty sure he did Dune.
the old one. He didn't do the new ones. With Timothy Chalamet?
Well,
No, that's not David Lynch.
Okay. Well, my bad. I liked Mulholland. What was it? Mulholland Drive.
Mulholland Drive
I thought
was
that was good.
very good. I did enjoy that one. I had to write I actually had to write an essay on that one in film school because it was unique. It was different. The cowboy character was my favorite. But what's funny to me is that Mulholland Drive was great, and I loved the cowboy character. But another movie came out years later by a Dallas director. Now, I've heard stories that he might be a little problematic. I don't know. I don't know the guy or whatever. But he's from Dallas, Texas, Shane Carruth, and he wrote and directed a movie called Upstream Color. Independent film, you're forgiven if you have not seen it or even heard of it. He's also the writer-director of the film Primer, which is arguably one of the best science fiction movies I've ever seen. You're also forgiven if you have to watch it like 6 times before you understand all of it. But anyway, he did Upstream Color, which is very David Lynchy. But his pig farmer character in Upstream Color was somewhat inspired by Mulholland Drive, I think. The parallels are too great to ignore. But I thought that was great. I thought that film was fantastic. And it was shot, the entire movie was shot on a Panasonic GH2 using anamorphic lenses, and it looks stunning. Stunning. Now, I don't know how it would hold up on like a 4K, 8K monitor today, because this movie came out in like 2006, I think. But very, very good 1080p transfer. So anyway, let's get the party started. I think everyone has joined in for now, and if not, they'll catch up. So Clem is kicking us off today.
Clem Fandango.
Clem Fandango. Okay.
Love Clem.
How do I connect a mini DSP SHD with preamp to use Dirac for both turntable and use streamer? Okay. I am going to do my best to walk you through how to do this. It's much easier if I had it open in front of me. So you would put because with the mini DSP, you can always kind of indicate where, like in the signal chain or the input to output settings, you want certain things to be. Like, do you want to PEQ the input? Do you want to PEQ the output? If you PEQ, if you do all of your adjustments to the output, then anything you plug in will go through your adjustments on their way out to your amplifier. If you do them individually at the input stage, then they will be unique to each input, and that's how you would do it. But if you want it for both turntable and streamer, let's say your streamer's going in through optical, and your turntable's using, because it has a built-in phono preamp, is using not the SHD. Your turntable has a built-in phono preamp, and it's using the analog ins. If you do all of your EQing adjustments and whatnot on the output of the SHD, it will be applied to everything coming into the SHD, if that makes sense. YZ, I know I asked this on IG to clarify. 2 SVS's, SB3000s, oh, I remember you, not micro, versus 1 SB17. 18 hertz seems nice times 2. Okay, I misread. So I did an AMA earlier this week because Katie woke me up at like 4 in the morning. And when it's that early, I need something to do. So this person, I misunderstood and thought that they were asking what would be better, 2 SVS 3000 micros or 1 SB17. And yeah. So I don't have any experience with the SB3000. If I'm reading your question correctly and it says that it can do 18 hertz, then if you're trying to get the bass to be as even across the widest area of your room with, you know, for everyone to enjoy the same low frequencies equally, then yes, I'm assuming the SB3000s are cheaper than 1 SB17, in which case I would opt for 2 of those over 1 SB17. Because that extra hertz, you know, SB17 plays down to 17, 15 hertz. The other one plays down to 18 hertz. I don't know if, I think we're splitting hairs at that point. Not to say that the SB17 isn't awesome, because you know it is. But if you're trying to evenly distribute bass, I would go with the 2 3000s. All right, Ollie, might be a noob question, but is it possible to have 2 center speakers, one on receiver and one on power amp? There are processors, preamp processors. There may be a receiver out there that I'm just not aware of that allows for you to have a split center channel. I know Sony experiments, or Sony has a setting for split center channels. Now, so that's, yes, it is possible to have 2 center channels. One on the receiver, one on the power amp, though, that's a different story. I do not, you never want to connect a speaker directly to a power amp without the ability to attenuate the level, the SPL, the volume, whatever you want to call it. Because if you just connect an amp directly to a speaker, and then you have, say, an input coming directly, well, hold on. One on the receiver. You still need a preamp. Let me back up. You still need a preamp that will either split the signal. Okay, now I understand what you're trying to do here. So you want to use the center output on the receiver and the preamp out for center on into an amp. I mean, you could do that, I suppose. I've never tried it. I've never done it. But technically it should be possible. I have no idea what the results would be. But yeah, in theory, you could do it, and you could put a center either above your TV and below so that you have even coverage. You could put 2 centers behind your screen if it's a projector, for a wider center, and that would maybe enable you to have your right and lefts out further. It really is going to depend on the receiver. Sometimes when you use the preamp outputs on a receiver, it disengages the amplifier section on that receiver. Sometimes it doesn't, so your mileage may vary, but technically, yeah, it would be possible, but I have no idea what to expect. All right, Clem's back already.
Again?
Just ordered a Michi S5 and an Eversolo A10. Is there really any major advantages to ordering the P5 preamp if I'm just streaming and using the SL15C? Is there any major advantages? It's going to come down to the input-output sensitivity of the Eversolo and whether or not that's a good match with the S5. You may find that with the Eversolo in its preamp mode, you end up having to turn it up a little bit louder than what maybe you're used to or what maybe seems normal. For example, let's say 0 is like maxed out and negative 99 is mute. And on any other preamp, maybe a good volume for you in your room is like, I don't know, 50 or 40, just past half. With the Eversolo, it might be possible that you feel like you're getting close to that like 10 or 9, 15 to 5 mark, which is like almost to 0. Some people get a bit nervous about that. Some people, it freaks them out. That is a possibility. It's something that I've noticed with some Eversolo stuff, depending on the input. There are, I don't want to speak out of turn. I believe there's a few ways to adjust the sensitivity of certain inputs, but not all of them. With a P5 preamp, you likely are not going to run into that potential issue. Of course, you would then leave the Eversolo in its just DAC streamer mode. You would turn off the variables so it's outputting 100%, and then you would use the P5 to pre-amplify the signal and then control source and volume and all that. Is that a major advantage? That I don't know. But it's just, I'm bringing these things up to kind of just make you aware. If you try the Eversolo first and you're like, wow, why am I really cranking this up? That might not be that uncommon. It's actually happened to me. Now, it doesn't bother me. It's not the end of the world, but some people, they get a bit, so just keep that in mind. Steve Wright, not to step on a hornet's nest, but did we ever get Kristi's Kaleidoscape take? And did you keep the Strato V? Kristi's quick review of the Kaleidoscape Strato V in 3, 2, go.
I really liked it. Oh my gosh.
Get her!
Oh my gosh. I'm coming for every one of your physical copies, and I'm going to just take them and I don't know what I'm going to do with them, but they won't be yours anymore. Obviously, I'm kidding. Mm-hmm. We decided not to do a follow-up Unplugged of the Kaleidoscape because, frankly, most people that watched that video could not control themselves. And we just really didn't feel like welcoming any more toxicity into our lives. Mm-hmm. I really liked the product. Do I understand why people feel that there are better ways to do it? Sure. I mean, you can often find a way to do something for less money.
Yeah.
And that's, I don't know why why that always has to be a part of the debate.
Yeah.
But it sure does seem to be a go-to. But, will Kaleidoscape survive? Who knows? We haven't actually heard from them since we sent the unit back following our review.
Yeah.
Well, no, wait. I guess I take that back. I think we got like an automated email that they hired a new CEO or something.
Not a new marketing officer or
Yeah.
something. They promoted a woman from within to whatever, some new position. But the Strato V was sent back before the review even aired.
Yeah.
And that's kind of standard. So we did not keep it. We didn't review it with the intention of necessarily keeping it or figuring out for ourselves if Kaleidoscape was something we wanted to welcome into this house. I was just genuinely curious since they moved away from the disc model from the era that I remember Kaleidoscape from into the new Strato V. And so I just wanted to have that experience. I wanted to compare it to my own movie servers and bring that to you. And that's what I thought I did. And oh, boy, did that riled some feathers. And it took me by surprise. It took me by complete surprise.
Oh yeah.
But I appreciate everyone watching it. Like,
I had no idea that physical media people were so just, I mean,
well,
they are very set in their beliefs, and that's fine. It's just there are some segments of the audience that just are not very open-minded, and I think people that are just diehard physical media types fall into that category.
not everybody. I mean,
I didn't say everyone.
well, I need to make sure that we clarified, because look, we didn't say the Kaleidoscape was the end-all be-all solution, but because I didn't open the video by backing over the Strato V with my car, then people assumed that I was, quote, pushing the Strato V, and nothing could be further from the truth. It was a good product that worked as advertised, and for me, I could actually see the benefit and value, though, and in the review, I make the argument that, is it the only way to scratch this itch? Absolutely not. And normally, that you say your piece and you go home. But so many people wanted to make it more, in my humble opinion, they wanted to make it more about them and their personal attachment to what they own. And when the conversation becomes less objective and more personal like that, there's no argument that you can levy, even in a courteous manner. There's no argument that you levy that will ever get someone to look at the facts. And I made the mistake of entering into some of these conversations politely and saying, like, look, the numbers don't support what you are claiming. There's nothing in the world right now that states that the reality you believe to be true is what's actually happening. And that's when I started to realize that for about 2 or 3 days after that review, that was the conversation I was having. I just said, that's enough for me.
Yeah, I mean, I feel you're totally spot on about people just take it personally. Mm-hmm. For example, we just had a comment from somebody else the other day on an Emotiva speaker review, and this person, turns out, owns some of that line, the Air Motive line, and they really like it, but they had such an issue with your personal take, because we didn't care for them, and it just became, the comment can often become so personal. And Andrew replied very courteously, and even though a lot of times I feel like there are accusations made as if that we have something against a brand, or we're a paid shill, that's always
the usual
favorite. And like I said, Andrew responded very courteously, and the person came back and admitted that they took it personally. They took that Andrew's not liking the product, they took it personally.
Yeah, and they apologized, and it's fine. But yeah, it's one of those things where we've discovered, at least last year especially, like there's just certain topics that I don't, for whatever reason, just kind of get under people's skin. And it's unfortunate because they're topics that are worthy of discussion. Like the physical media debate is worthy of discussion because I think it's grossly misunderstood. And I say this having been on both sides of the fence, literally on both sides of the fence. And not like, oh, I used to have a collection of DVDs and Blu-rays, but now I stream only. No, I've been on the distribution side and the content creation side of physical media distribution as a business. as well as a fan ingesting the content as a viewer. And what is interesting to me is that a lot of people who are very rah-rah about physical media will talk about how they own it and it benefits or it supports, creators better than streaming or whatever. To which I often ask, like, where are you acquiring your media? And more often than not, and the stats bear this out, more often than not, people are acquiring their media through eBay, secondhand resellers, and things like that, in which case you've benefited no one but the reseller and obviously yourself.
Someone just said that's why you became homeless, ? Because of selling CDs.
No. I made a film I started making a film in 2006. I started writing it. I shot the film in 2008. The film came out in 2009. And right at about the time that the film came out, the global economic housing crisis and crash happened. As a result, going into production, while we were literally filming the movie, we had distribution options in place with a couple of major studios. Minor majors like your Lionsgates, your New Lines, Samuel Goldwyn, things like that. Not Universal, not Disney, but some of the minor majors. And while we were probably 12, 13 days into filming, the whole world changed. And while we were in post-production, we were doing editing and things like that. All of our deals disappeared. Heck, some of the studios and some of the people we were dealing with lost their jobs. And we finished this movie and we did not have a home for it. And at which point, we have investors, there are people that put up the money for us to make this movie. So they need to be repaid. And so we went into a self-distribution mode. And in so doing, we released the film theatrically. We learned about theatrical distribution. We released the film theatrically. And we also negotiated for physical media distribution. And we also negotiated streaming. Now, at that time, when we did the Netflix deal, which put the film on Netflix for, the red envelopes, streaming was included in those deals because everyone was still very much, physical media. So when we made the deal for the DVDs in that contract, it was like, oh, Netflix has the right to, quote, stream this on their platform for the next 7 years. And it was kind of a gimme. Didn't think anything of it. Well, we were also negotiating with iTunes and releasing iTunes at that time because that was, releasing the movie that way and a couple other things while a different company was in charge of international distribution. And after a few weeks and months of all of these negotiations and whatnot, we were in a pretty good place. And at that time, a company, a well-known company, you guys would know them, more known for television, but they were a global distribution company. They reached out and they wanted to acquire the film for a sum of money, and not a small sum of money, but enough that everyone would have been paid back and would have been compensated for their efforts a little bit extra. And we were getting ready to do the deal. And what I thought was going to be the day that I signed contracts was the day that they rescinded their deal because our Netflix envelopes had started to drop in people's mailboxes. People had started to rent the movie. And when they rented the movie, the film showed up on Pirate Bay. And because the film was now pirated in most foreign countries, this distribution company who was going to make us whole said the film had no value to them anymore. And so they pulled out. As a result, things got very contentious. And yeah, it didn't go well. it didn't go well. And I spent my own personal money keeping a lot of that project, that everything kind of going. And as a result, I exhausted every single one of my financial resources. That resulted in me having to, declare bankruptcy. Now, it's not entirely the film's fault. That was one of a confluence of multiple decisions. Other ones being the house I lived in at the time suddenly wasn't even worth what the lumber must have cost to build it. I was a dumb late 20, early 30s financial idiot. I owned multiple cars. I had a ridiculous theater. I only liked the nicest things, and I was debt financing all of it. All of it. So I've been that idiot too. But yes, all of those things kind of hit in a 12-month period that caused me to, have to evacuate my home and watch all of my nice things get hauled away in trucks. And I moved into a trailer, double wide, whatever the word is, something with wheels, with holes in the floor and squirrels and snakes in the kitchen.
Started scooping elephant crap.
And I scooped elephant crap for $20 to $50 a day for a couple of years. So, yeah, how the mighty can fall. But that is what it was. It wasn't because physical media or anything like that. It was just a confluence of situations. But one of the big ones that would have probably really helped pull me out of some tough spots because of the debt I was in, partially because of the film, was the fact that physical media led to piracy, which a lot of people in our comments of that Kaleidoscape video had no problems admitting to piracy. Piracy hurts. It hurts a lot. It took 3 years. Piracy cost me 3 years of my life and my house. So,
yeah,
it's not, when you saw those old, back in the day when you would start a movie and you get the FBI warning, it says piracy is not a victimless crime. I remember being young and being like, fast forward, who cares? Now, as a grown adult who's had that experience, no, it's not a victimless crime. It effing sucks. Excuse me. So anyway, that is your quick review of the Strato V.
Oh, so a couple of people asked for my volume to be boosted a little. Do you have to get up to do that?
I do.
Ugh. One of these days you need to tell me how to do it.
Here, I'm going to try and help some people out as best I can here. One of the things you're running into is my girl over here does not like anything in her eye line, so I end up having to put her microphone just a little bit further away so that she doesn't feel like she's going to run into it. And also she moves a lot when she talks, and so she'll move away from the microphone.
That is true. I have a hard time sitting still. Now everyone's complaining about the audio, so...
Can you boost the overall volume? My phone is... okay. Headset mic. Oh, headset mic. I like that. Can we get by, or do I need to stand up and fix this? Would you like it a little louder? Because I can't adjust it any louder here. I have to physically get up and adjust the camera. Anyone? Andrew is fine. Kristi is low.
Yeah. Just get up and do it.
All right. 2 seconds, guys.
We had a couple of questions about reviewing LG products. They're a brand that we don't have the easiest time getting samples from. Our LG B4 TV that we reviewed in 2024 was one of the first LG products we were sent in probably a couple of years. So I don't, they're just, that's one of the reasons you don't see them that often on the show. We do ask, I mean, I always request, but, just doesn't always happen.
All right. Well, it looks like we're good now. So I've set a setting in the camera for your mic for streaming, so now it's a preset.
Oh, great.
All right, let's keep the party going. DKPG Gold, Martin Logan Motion XT F100, Motion XT C100, Motion MP10 and 2 Klipsch RP 1200W on a Marantz Cinema 30 with a Sony Bravia 9. What are your thoughts on that setup? I mean, it sounds like you just put together some of our greatest hits. So I think you can be done. I think you're going to have a great experience. You have a great system. The Motion XT series is fantastic. The Sony Bravia 9, is my jam. And the Cinema 30 is no slouch. So my thoughts on it? Approved.
Excuse me, guys.
Clem says, yes, David Lynch did the original Dune from the 80s. So that was callback to 20 minutes ago.
Oh, yes.
Wandering Outlaw, I'm about to sell my house and start traveling the country in my RV, and I have limited space to place sound equipment, and I'm curious what you'd put in if you had a budget of around $3,000. Details on the limited space below. I mean, to be honest with you, if I was in an RV, I can't see your limited details below for whatever reason. My little chat box, I see that you left an additional comment there, Wandering Outlaw.
It was probably me.
Oh, okay.
Respond. So just so you know, anytime someone leaves a super chat, unless I don't get to it in time, because it does time out, I always reply and just say, hey, we'll get to your question soon, so that people know.
If I was in an RV, I can almost guarantee you that I would just do a sound bar, because I'm assuming that if this RV has like a TV, we're not talking anything big here, nothing over 65 inches. Hell, I'd be surprised if it was over 42 or 55, in which case the sound bar is going to be just fine. Budget of around $3K. I mean, knowing that I want music and movies at a high level with a certain amount of aesthetics and or luxury, like I'm going to go with the Bang & Olufsen Biosound stage. Or I'm going to go with something like the Sonos Arc Ultra. Now, I would likely go with the Biosound stage in this example purely because I don't know if you're going to have room for something like a subwoofer in your RV, and I don't want to. Space is valuable, and so you're going to get a greater sensation of a more fulfilling bass from something like the Biosound stage all on its own. So that's likely what I would do, because it's a great music speaker. It's a great home theater soundbar. It's a great, nice piece of kit. And that's probably what I would do in a tight space, especially like the one you're describing. Tom, just got an RZ50, ran to rack on my PC, but the Android app doesn't seem to recognize or allow me to edit the settings. Are they totally separate? Do I need to always use the PC to tweak the curves? Unfortunately, I do not have Android phones, so I cannot help you with that. It is my opinion that if you want to get in and change some of the curves and do more manual adjustments like that, it's just easier on the PC. It really is. I've done them on my phone, and it's possible, but I honestly don't like it. It's clumsy. So while I understand the lack of convenience of always pulling out, say, a laptop to make those adjustments, I would even encourage you to sit down with that laptop, make your adjustments, spend an hour or however long it takes to get them the way you want them and do them right, because the chances of you going in and doing this on a regular basis is probably slim to none. So inconvenience yourself initially, and then you'll be better off long term. But as far as how the Android app works and stuff like that, I can't speak to that. I don't have an Android phone. And the Android phone I do have kicking around in a drawer is so old at this point and out of date, and it's no longer even supported. That's half the apps that I want to check on for you guys as Android users. My phone won't run. So that's where we're at. Tom also writes, thanks for sharing all your knowledge, and I really appreciate you and Kristi's attitude and approach.
Oh, thanks, Tom.
Thank you.
Glad to have you as a member.
Ollie says, yes, under and over, maybe get better center from a big TV. Okay. Yeah, I apologize for kind of initially misunderstanding your question, but the more I thought about it, yeah, if you remember to come back, leave a comment on one of our videos, I'd be curious as to what you think of it, because it's not something that I've tried. Hey guys, love the channel. Best vibes in the field. Do you plan on reviewing the new Blue Sound Node icon? I would like to. It will maybe happen this year, but it is not something that is imminent. That is probably a product that I'm going to have to come out of pocket in order to acquire, and that's fine. We don't need to get into that. But it is on my radar. But I'm backlogged at the moment. I've got enough stuff I've got to get through first. That's going to take me well into March at this point, but it is on my radar. Philip writes, budget speaker upgrade question, 2.1 music home theater system in my basement. Marantz Stereo 70S into ELAC DB 6.2s with an ELAC 310 sub. Want to move to a more detailed bookshelf. Recommendations. Detailed, by you saying that, I'm assuming that it's not that the ELAC isn't detailed. It is. But there is a way to get a sensation of more contrast, more dynamic contrast, more, quote, detail. And it usually comes at the expense of a less rolled off upper mid-range or even a rise in upper mid-range and or treble response, in which case it's not necessarily that a speaker is more or less detailed than the one next to it. It's just got a slightly different voicing. Not knowing your budget, I can tell you that in direct comparison to an ELAC speaker, at least in our experience, our room, our home, the new SVS Nano bookshelves or the new SVS bookshelves in the Evolution series are going to sound more articulate, detailed, contrasty when directly compared to something like the ELAC. If you want to take that to an absolute extreme in terms of like, wow, I'm hearing things, I'm getting a sensation of like, that's a lot of information that I feel like maybe an ELAC quote glosses over, you could go with the B&W 600 series S3, which is going to be even. Yep.
Oh, Philip just commented the budget is $1,000.
Okay, so you can get either the SVSs, you could do B&W 600 S3 series. $1,000 doesn't quite get you to Lumina 2 from Sonus Faber, unless you buy them on, maybe they're on sale, I don't know. But all three of those options are going to come across compared to an ELAC as, quote, more detailed. And it's not that they are, it's just because of their voicing, you might walk away with that impression. But you also could walk away not liking any of them, too, because you're so used to ELAC. So do try and stay objective when making comparisons. Antoine, love you guys. Which would you rather have? Klipsch RP600M Mark IIs up front or the ELAC DB63s? And is my Denon S960 enough, or should I get an amp, and which one? If you want something that's going to be more exciting, more dynamic, more, I don't want to say in your face, because I don't think the 600M2s are in your face, but they are going to have that little extra kick of contrast at more volumes. So if you want that, then the 600Ms. Now, if you're someone that really likes neutrality, someone that may quietly, without admitting it to themselves or others, scour the internet and look at graphs and be influenced by what you see a squiggly line do, then you should get the ELAC. You should, because if you're that type of enthusiast, you will have peace of mind knowing that you have a less squiggly line. Is your Denon enough? Yes, your Denon should be fine. If your Denon has preamp outs, you could always add an amp later, in which case, because we're talking about trying to save a little bit of money here, my go-to recommendation for an inexpensive, easy to obtain, and easy to live with stereo amplifier remains the Emotiva Bass X A2. I think it's going to run you about $300, and it will drive either one of those speakers to the moon. So that's all you would need.
I would rather have the 600Ms.
Okay.
The DB63s, those were the older ELACs.
Oh, were they?
I think so.
They could be the new ones. I don't.
Yeah.
Just in general, ELAC tends to be a little bit more neutral than Klipsch, so it's just gonna. But I'm not surprised.
I really like the new debut 3.0s that we reviewed. I guess towards the end of 2024. But oh wait, Philip says the 6.3s are the new ones.
Yeah. The debut 3.0 is the series, and then there's like the 53 and the 63. So I'm assuming they were the new ones, in which case they're both good. It just comes down to what flavor of sound do you want, you know?
I really liked the new, those new
ELACs. Oh, they're fantastic.
But the 600Ms are the 2s especially. I didn't care for the
ones,
the original version as much, but they're just a very different experience.
Okay. Afonso, thank you so much. He says coffee's on him this afternoon. Cheers.
I know. He's so nice. Thank you. Hope you're doing good.
Yeah, currently at work. Hope you're killing it at work. Demand. There are 2 subs for stereo pair worth the loss of floor space for soundstage. And how come you do not have stereo pair subs? Why is your single sub tucked in the corner like that for 2-channel stereo? I kind of went over this in the SB17 video.
You did go over it.
Yeah. The sub is in our back left corner because in our room, where I sit and I listen, if I put a sub in the front, or 2 subs even, in the front for a stereo pair, like how I think you are envisioning, I'm actually not going to hear those subs very well. Definitely not to the level that someone would pay $2-3 grand to have a subwoofer and want to walk away with a very good experience. And so in measuring every square inch of this room, I have discovered that the back left corner of our room, actually, if a subwoofer is there from 15 hertz to about 100 hertz, I have a very, very even linear response across the entire 9-foot width of our sofa that sits 10.5 feet back of our front wall, and it's like 9 feet away from that back corner. It just ends up having the smoothest bass, and that's why it's there. And when I have a sub there, provided the sub is capable of energizing this room, I actually don't need a second one. The thing about subwoofers is, yes, there are some known facts or quote rules, but it still comes down to the individual's room and where everything else is situated. And I really, really worry that a lot of people buy subs, sometimes more than one, and put them where they see other people put them, and then, comment to us and, struggle like, I don't feel like this sub is good, or it's blowing me out of the room. And it's just like, yeah, it comes down to placement. Everything about loudspeaker performance, and subwoofers especially, lower frequencies especially, it comes down to setup and placement more than anything. You can fix a lot with placement of the speakers relative to the room, and your relative seating position to those speakers relative to the room. Yeah, so that's why. King writes, in your room review series that you're In your room review series that you're making, do you have a double desk study set up in the works? Wife and I share a study since we both work from home now. Oh, that's interesting. That's interesting. You know, one of the concepts that when we get to the more open floor plan part of that series, I was going to experiment with a workspace in the same room as like a main system. And a double desk situation ain't a bad idea because we are now running into that here at our house because, you know, I work at a desk off to the side. It's not ideal, but it's, you know, I work on a desk off to the side. But you are in kind of needing a space as well. And we don't have any more rooms in the house for an office. So it's something that I'm starting to kick around. So I'll keep that in mind. I appreciate the comment. Brian, I'm combining a headphone system with a 2-channel setup, Model 40N. The 40N doesn't have a digital output for the headphone DAC. How would you go about integrating these two systems? Oh, Brian, I wish I could refund your generous super chat because I am the absolute last person to ask about how to integrate or do anything with headphones because that is just not something that I have ever really dove into. So anything that I tell you is likely to be wrong. So I'm not even going to try.
Brian has added in the chat box, it's a topping D90 and an A90.
Unfortunately, I don't know anything about either of those products, and at the risk of...
It's more about getting an input to the DAC.
Input to the DAC. But why? Okay, so I guess now I'm confused. If you're combining a headphone system with a 2-channel setup, but you have a... Why does the headphone amp DAC from topping need to be connected to this main system? I mean, it's headphone listening. Or are you attempting to use it to listen to headphones while watching like television, in which case I don't have a 40N in front of me? So oh gosh, I feel terrible.
There's no other source.
I don't know how to help. I can't envision this. I would need to sit down with, I would need to see the back. I would need more time with this one. I'm sorry. I'm going to make a note to myself, or Kristi will make a note for me. I'm going to revisit this one in the comments of this live stream later today. I'll do my best to help you then. But I'm going to fumble. I'm going to fumble badly here, trying to do it off the top of my head. So I will come back to that in the comment section of this video later today. Alberto, love the podcast and your reviews and comments, both of you. Always very on point. Keep them coming. Purchase Polk R700s based on your review, and they sound amazing. Well, I'm so glad. It's another one. It's just classic.
Yeah,
the
it's a great
R700.
speaker.
It's a great speaker. Just a great speaker.
I'm so glad you're happy.
Yes. Havoc. Is the video playing normally today?
Yes, it seems to have gotten better.
Okay.
The stream crashed for me
Mm-hmm.
earlier, but so far, so good.
Okay. Good morning, Kristi and Andrew. I'm building a 5.1.2 KEF for the bed layer speakers due to speaker availability. Do the height speakers have to match? What would you recommend to match the KEF Q series non-meta? KEF Q series.
Like, I'm assuming that's like the Q.
That's the
150, 350s.
yeah.
We reviewed the 750s, I think.
Do the height speakers have, and we did the Q11 metas, but the 750 was the non-meta. Do the height speakers have to match? No, you could get away with the ELAC height speakers. You could get away with ELAC debut 3.0 bookshelves. They're going to be similar-ish in tone, a lot cheaper than buying KEF. That's probably what I would do, to be honest. I think that would be a decent pairing. So yeah, try that. Greg, loved your latest vid. Do you have an opinion on the difference between the Lumina 2 and Lumina 2 Amateur? Amateur. Part of the Music Plus Movie setup. No worries if not. I don't. I haven't heard the special edition of the Lumina 2. I wasn't fully compelled to necessarily seek it out. I've just been happy with our Lumina 2s all this time. I do like the finish of the special edition. I think it is really, really nice. So from a more design side of me, I sure would like that. But in terms of performance, I couldn't tell you. Sorry. Antoine, my receiver doesn't have pre-outs. Do I need a preamp for the Basics A2 you recommended, and which would work best for that? Oh, if your receiver does not have pre-outs, yeah, you can't do the Basics A2. Because you were contemplating Klipsch versus ELAC. I believe your receiver is going to be just fine. I really, really do. If you find that you want more than that, understand that we're now talking about having to replace your receiver if you need more power. You're either going to need to step up to a more powerful receiver, or we're going to be stepping into a more powerful receiver that also has preamp outputs that will allow you to add separate amplifiers down the road. But for now, do not shop the Basics A2. If your receiver does not have preamp outs, it's not going to be of any value or benefit to you. Try those speakers on the receiver you have. I do believe you will be fine. It will work. You will be fine. Yeah. And as a follow-up, how do you feel about the good old Sonus Play Bar and Play Ones with Gen 3 sub compared to the new stuff, aka a system I still use 10 years later? Look, I have always felt that old, new Sonos products have historically sounded really good. I think sonically they have always represented a very, very strong audible value proposition. That says nothing about compatibility, functionality in terms of the app and all of that. I'm just saying from a sound standpoint, I have no reason to believe that a Sonos speaker that was 10 years old versus the new stuff is less than. Obviously, with new advancements in driver technology, DSP, and things like that, the new speakers can definitely do things that the older speakers can't. But that does not mean that the older speakers don't still sound good. As for your specific speakers, unfortunately, I don't have a great deal of current experience with those SKUs, and as a result, I don't want to give you any more in-depth information or opinion on them than what I just did. So that's how I feel about Sonos. So thank you. Vadim. Okay. Vadim likes to put me on an island. A lot of his questions are always, Vadim, you're on an island. Name 3 movies you'll watch for the rest of your life and 3 TV shows you'll watch. Could not stop watching there for both of you.
Oh man, 3 movies I'll watch for the rest of my life.
Or 3 TV shows you'll watch for the rest of your life.
This reminds me of that episode on Wrecked,
yeah,
where they're stranded on an island and they only have 2 movies to watch.
And their portable DVD player only has enough battery to watch one movie.
One of them is Selma, the civil rights movie, and then the other one, what was it?
Dumb and Dumber 2.
Oh yeah, Dumb and Dumber 2, and the whole episode, the whole scene is about them trying to debate on which one to watch. Do they want to be
entertained,
socially educated,
yeah,
and enlightened, or do they want to laugh? Ultimately, they choose to laugh. which
It's
I
one
guess
it's one of the best
it's so good.
episodes ever.
That whole show was so good, and it might actually be one of the TV shows I could rewatch.
Yeah.
As if I am, stranded on this island.
Yeah.
Office Space might be
A movie.
a movie I would have. I still remember laughing hysterically in the theater back when that came out. What else? Do you have any while I'm still thinking?
TV shows. I was actually going to say Wrecked because it makes me laugh to this day. The Walking Dead, the entire 11, 12 years that it was on.
Oh, we're currently rewatching that right now. I don't think I would choose that though.
I would. I love that show. Especially now that we're in like season 3 right now. And I'm like, oh, the old stuff was so good. So good. Walking Dead, Wrecked, West Wing. Oh, West Wing or Newsroom. I watch the news. I know Newsroom is only 3 seasons, but I tend to watch Newsroom once a year. It's some of the best TV I've ever seen in my life.
I would choose Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the TV show, not the movie. As probably that show went many seasons, so it would provide me with a lot of entertainment, and I freaking loved that show so much.
Movies though, movies. I'd probably do 7 because I always learn something from that film every time I watch it. Not like story wise, but I just notice little things about it. 7, Giant.
Oh, that was such a good movie.
Giant at this point with me is like, it's like the ultimate classic. I know everyone's going to say things like Casablanca and all that, Ben-Hur, and it's like Giant to me is better than all of those movies. Giant, 7, third option. Oof.
The one movie that I always think about is still Magnolias, and I know it's kind of a sappy movie.
Yeah.
But I remember seeing that movie and how much I laughed and cried, and I just thought all of the women's performances were so good.
Yeah.
That one is one that I might take on an island.
Yeah.
With me.
But that's
Vadim says Gladiator for him.
okay. Not Gladiator 2 though. Oof. Wow.
People need us. Movie producers need to stop making sequels in general.
I mean, you know what? I don't mind sequels. Just don't remake the movie, like shot for shot. Like Gladiator 2 is Gladiator 1, shot for shot. It's the same movie.
Oh, I know. What was the Western that we watched?
The Western?
The Western. It was on HBO. It was like from a long time ago. We the guy that plays
Welcome to how the evenings go here.
the
Who
guy,
needs game night?
the guy that plays Brigham Young in the new American Primeval was in this
Western?
Western TV series.
Oh,
Deadwood. Thank you,
Deadwood.
Fox.
you said movie.
Did I say movie?
Yes. So I'm sitting here going, what Western
I'm
movie?
sorry. I meant TV show.
Deadwood.
Deadwood.
Yes,
There
Deadwood
was
is
a movie
fantastic.
as well, but that's one of that show, which by the way I only saw for the first time like last year.
Last year I introduced
and
you to it. Yeah.
Freaking
Binged the whole thing.
obsessed. Thank you, John. I did say HBO. I said HBO.
Yes, she did.
I don't think I said movie. Anyway,
But that could also mean, keep in mind, when she says HBO, I go to Max and I'm like, we do watch a lot of content on Max because we're watching The Pit. We're watching, The Pit, the franchise got
Canceled.
canceled. Boo. Dude, the franchise was fun.
Oh, it was so funny. Oh my gosh. Jason Flanagan, another show that ended too soon? Firefly. Fox and their dumb ways. They ruined it.
All right. Well, I hope that answers your question, Vadim. I'm seeing all these great movies now, and I want to just...
I know. It's fun.
Yeah. I have the KEF Q150s Power Node 2 with a Blue Sound hub for phono and HDMI ARC. Mainly listen to vinyl and Tidal. Looking to upgrade and wondering, should I start with my speakers or a new DAC amp? I mean, if your speakers work in the room and you're enjoying it, you can go DAC amp. I'm just curious as to what you feel you need to upgrade or why. Like what about your experience is not doing it for you? And ask yourself if you are coming to that conclusion on your own, or are you reacting to maybe fear of missing out because somewhere someone tells you that the new power node, for example, or this, that, or the other thing is just demonstrably better. There's a very real chance that you could just be making a completely sideways move here, in which case I don't want you to go buy something or liquidate something in order to buy something, plug it all in and just be like, it's not different. So unless there's a specific problem that's jumping out at you where you're like, oh, Andrew, I would like a little bit more weight in the mid-range or more bass. Okay, well then let's look at your speakers. But if you're like, oh no, the speakers are perfect, I love it, the way everything sounds, then just stay put. Just stay put. I have R700s, Emotiva's XPA HC1 monos, and an RZ50 set up based on your reviews. Getting some hiss on certain tracks at high volumes. Can you speak to hiss and how to get black hole silence? Well, not to be this level of tweaker, but hiss can come from your AC mains, your power line. If you live in an apartment, you live in a condo, you live in an older house, it's possible that there's just some old wiring, some old congestion, too many things on a circuit. That's one possibility, in which case, how to deal with that? You can call an electrician, get a new line brought to that portion of your room, house. You could experiment with power conditioners. Be very careful about some of those. Do your research. I can't advise you in that realm. Getting some hiss on certain tracks at high volumes. I would also look into like what certain tracks and on what sources are these, because it's possible that some of that noise is in the mix. It's possible that some of that, if they're older especially, that might be just in the music. I don't know. So yeah, there's a couple of different things that could be occurring. Understand that not all electronics are dead nut silent. A little bit of hiss is sometimes common. If it's audible at your listening position and you sit some distance away, then I would look into, maybe if it's bothering you, I would look into ways of treating it, fixing it. If you are using R700s in the incredibly near field, let's say you're sitting within 3 or 4 feet of them, there may not be anything you can do. I don't know. But the Emotiva HC1 shouldn't have, they should be pretty silent. It's not the R700s. R700s don't make a sound unless something else is giving it to them. The RZ50 could be that too, but it's likely something to do with your power mains. There might be just a little bit of noise in your AC lines, if you will. So, J. Lawrence Smith, coffee's on me. 4 weeks in with the M1 post-power node into Cornwall 3 is thoroughly enjoyable. Little detail surprises while keeping the warmth in familiar music. Confirm everything that you shared. That is great. Love to hear it. Love to hear it. And then following up, and this is something that we were going to probably end up talking about. My Marantz M1 makes a pulsating, hissing sound that shadows the music. It's hooked up to DefTech D15s. Any idea what might be going on? If you have a Marantz M1 and you recently carried out a firmware update, and by recently I would say within the last 3 weeks to 1 month, if you have auto updates set to on, it is my recommendation, if you have not run an update, do not run the current update. We also just ran the current update on our M1, and we too are now experiencing a noise issue. It was not there prior to whatever this latest update was. And we've gotten anecdotal evidence from several of you, Milwaukee, yourself, saying that post-update, they are now noticing a noise issue that did not exist before.
One of the things that Milwaukee, I believe it was them added into the chat box comments was they're now on their third M1.
But if they're on...
And I was going to comment before this got brought up that ours was phenomenal until the update was run a couple of weeks ago.
Yes, and if you are on your third one, it's not going to matter if when you plug it in, it auto updates, because HIOS, the app, will say, hey, an update's available, and you click yes. There's something about the latest update. Now, I do not have confirmation from Marantz on this, but because we have lived with the M1 for well over a year, we did the update about 2.5 weeks ago, and it was a known update. Literally, the second I hit play on any content after that update, I have this noise. Kristi has reached out to Marantz. They are now aware of it. We are waiting back word from their engineering department. That's all I have for you. If you have an M1, it is not having the noise issue. Do not run the latest update. It will prompt you. The app will tell you, turn off auto updates. Don't run it. Your M1 will work just fine. But in my opinion, it would appear that the latest update, I don't know what the update number is, but the latest update that the app is telling people or auto updates are doing is creating a noise issue. Don't ask me how or why. That's just what I have found on our end.
And like Andrew said, I did reach out to Marantz yesterday. They have already responded to acknowledge the email, and they are passing our feedback along to the engineers, and that's kind of where things are at right now.
We will keep you updated.
But if we hear something, we'll make sure to make a note of it somewhere at some point.
Nathaniel, I just installed an SVS 5.1 setup. I have a huge null around 40, 60, and 70 hertz and 120. I tried placing the sub in different places without success. Any idea how to fix it? Have you tried moving your speakers? Have you also tried moving your seating position? Because 40, 60, 70, and 120 hertz is also going to, your speakers are going to impact that as well. Your speakers are going to be playing in those regions. And so I would start with a stereo pair. Let's forget 5.1 for now. Start with a pair of stereo speakers, and at a seated listening height with, I'm assuming you have some sort of measurement microphone since you're able to identify these nulls. Start moving that microphone forward and backwards from your primary listening position with a pair of stereo speakers set up, and see how those nulls change, because it could be the relationship that you have to the speakers. If you can't move your seating position, then you need to start moving the speakers closer to you, further away from each other, closer together, and see what that does in that position. Once you have those as best you can evened out, then you add a center, you add your surrounds, and you may need to play with the surrounds to see how they start to interact. From there, you can do the subwoofer thing. I tried placing the sub in different places without success. Unless you literally tried every single place that the sub may be able to go in your room, just trying 3 or 4 places is a great start, but you may not have identified the place where it needs to truly go. But again, if you're experiencing 40, 60, 70, and 120 hertz dips, I would strip it all down to the basics, start with stereo in your seating position, and start seeing what that relationship needs to be to get that as even as possible first, and then start adding more speakers. I know it's been a while since this is Bodie McBoatface. I know it's been a while since you reviewed it, but does the NAD 399 have independent subwoofer outs? No clue. I have no idea.
Sorry,
NAD 399, does it have independent subwoofer outs? I do not recall. I don't think it had. Did it even have 2 subwoofer outs?
What's the
NAD
model?
399. Kristi is looking it up.
Just did a Google search, and I'm not going to verify that this is right. Cannot do independent subwoofer management.
There you go. According to Google.
Now, NAD's site says that the C399 has 2 sets of speaker outputs.
That's speaker outputs. We're looking for subwoofer
It
outs.
has preamp output jacks and dual subwoofer outputs.
Okay. But they may not be independent.
I don't know.
Okay.
Google Bodie.
Consult the manual.
Sorry.
Dino Dad, B&W 706 S3 and Polk Audio sub. Should I upgrade my Cambridge Audio AXR 100D amplifier? I mean, look, if you like what you're hearing and it's working for you, no, because it's still working for you and you like it. Can the B&W 700 series speakers benefit from a more stout amplifier? Sure, but that isn't to say that the AXR 100 is incapable. So, yeah, again, when it comes to some of these upgrades, especially if you've been living with the system for a while, if you want to upgrade because you just have the itch for something new, that's its own thing. That's fine. But if you're fine with everything and you listen to it, you're enjoying it, and it's provided you with months or years of happiness, don't upgrade and upset the apple cart just because videos like ours or anybody's comes along and promises you something different, because it very well could go the other way. You have good speakers, you have a good sub, and the AXR 100, while not the definitive last word in everything, is still a really, really solid product. So should you upgrade? I don't know. It really depends on your reasons for wanting to upgrade. Sorry, Andrew, I did not say exactly which KEFs, Q350 for LCR and Q150 for surrounds. I started my system based on your review of the Onkyo RZ30. I was able to get it under 1,000, thank you. Oh, that's fantastic. I mean, again, if you don't, if I'm remembering your question correctly, Havoc, if you aren't due to availability, can't get the KEF, Atmos, or height channels, and you don't want to use like Q150s or something for those height channels, like I said, you can easily use some ELACs in there, and I think sonically they'll be agreeable. But it sounds like you have a really nice setup. Thank you for sharing your story. Not that, Michael Scott. Thank you for sharing your story and the small home theater build video. You've had Eames lounge chairs. What are your thoughts on them for home theater? The original size or the tall for home theater? Yes, we still have our Eames lounge chair. It's in a different room now. I do not recommend the tall for listening, as it comes up and behind the ears, even though I will admit to you it's hella comfortable, the tall, but I probably wouldn't listen in it. The standard works just fine because the standard kind of cuts you here, and it's meant for the back of your head to kind of rest right on the top of that headrest. So the headrest is more of an upper shoulder neck support rather than a head rest. Would I use them in a home theater? Boy, I don't know. I know I've been in a lot of listening rooms that have, Eames loungers as like the primary listening position. And to be perfectly honest with you, I love my Eames lounge chair. I think it's one of the best chairs ever made. But I don't know if I would even listen in it, to be honest with you. I like it more as a lounge chair off to the side where I can read a book, flip through a magazine, sit on my laptop, with my computer on my lap and answer emails. That to me is the strength of that chair. As a listening chair, I don't know if I like it even in the standard form, even though it would work. I think I would pick a lot of other things for theater seating. As stylish as the Eames is, I think I'd pick a lot of other things for theater seating. Still a great chair, though. What happened?
Oh, just YouTube crashed. Crashed again for me.
Home cinema hi-fi. Are KEF R3 meta and R6 meta? Okay. Are KEF R3 meta with R6 meta or 3 R6 meta as LCR a good upgrade from Wharfdale Evo 4.2 or 4C? Or are the Q Concerto and Q6 meta also a nice upgrade? As electronics, Marantz 7020 with Rotel. I mean, your power and your preamp or your receiver and your power amp will drive any one of these things. As for which ones are they going to be a nice upgrade? Again, this is so hard for anyone to answer, because it really depends on what it is you're trying to accomplish. And I'm not in your room. I can tell you there's going to be a difference. There's going to be some differences. Will you consider them to be an upgrade? I don't know. I can tell you your Marantz and your Rotel will drive all of the options you've put forth just fine. The only other advice that I can give you is the R6. I always advocate for having the same 3 speakers up front if you can. And LCRs like the R6 make that possible. And so from a tonality standpoint across the front of your room, that could be something very, very nice to experience. That could be a really nice thing. Does that mean they are out and out better than Evos? I don't know. For you, you may like that AMT tweeter on the Evo. You may like that, the little bit more resolution because it's lack of the same roll-off characteristics of the KEF. It really does depend. If you have not heard KEF before, I would urge you to demo them before making any decisions, because KEF is one of those speakers. If you like them, and you know that I do, but if you like them, boy, they're really, really hard to beat. But if you don't like them or you find them too subdued, there's no amount of anyone telling you that they're well built, well engineered, neutral, whatever, that's going to convince you to like them, if that makes sense. So, yeah, that is my advice, home cinema hi-fi. Love y'all. Recently moved from freestanding to KEF in-wall LCR and 2 subs. Love the sound but miss the rumble in some movies. Is that typical, and how would I maximize using a Sony 5000 ES AVR? So I'm assuming, Paul, that you went to in-wall subwoofers, in which case you missed that rumble. Not knowing what subs you went from freestanding. Paul, I think I might need some more info here, buddy. It's hard for me to answer this one because you went from freestanding KEF. Oh, you moved from freestanding to KEF in-wall LCRs and 2 subs. So I'm assuming your freestanding speakers were KEF, but I don't know. You have KEF in walls with 2 subs. Are those subs in walls? Are they not in walls? I don't know. Love the sound, but miss the rumble in some movies. It's possible whatever freestanding speakers you had that were causing rumbles were positioned in such a place that they were exciting the room, that now that you're using in walls, they're not in that exact same place, and that's what's brought maybe what was a boost in bass down, in which case you can combat that by turning your subs up a little bit. In your Sony ES, you can increase the volume on those. Maybe that will work. If your subs are in wall, you don't have placement flexibility there. In which case, yeah, your only option really is probably to go into the 5000 ES's channel or speaker level menu and increase the volume on that, or go into the graphic EQ and boost some frequencies, probably around 30 and 40 hertz to give you that bit of boom, that little bit of rumble that you're missing. That's the best I got. Jumped on me. Antoine writes, do you really like bookshelf speakers more than floor standers? And have you tested the Sioux Research VTF2 sub? I got one and I think it's pretty badass for the price. It has been well over 15 years since I have played with a Sioux Research sub. But going back that far, Sioux Research makes phenomenal subwoofers. I don't know this one in particular, but I can tell you that historically, I have had nothing but good experiences with Sioux Research subs. I'm picking up a pair of B&W Formation Duos for the office for $2K. They're a floor model. Would you go with the Duo or the B&O Level A5? Love the content. The Formation Duos are going at $2,000. That's a steal. They're great. Those are great. And you're going to get true stereo imaging. You're going to get more bass out of those than, say, a Level. Nothing against the Level. I love our Level, but you're going to get a bigger sound from the Formation Duos. And at $2,000, it's a better value proposition than the Level or the A5. The only reason why I would advocate a Level or an A5 is it's going to be on a newer platform. The Formation Duo is arguably a little bit older at this point.
Likely being discounted
because of that.
in preparation for some sort of replacement. I do not have.
Yeah.
I'm not saying this because I have some sort of
Inside knowledge.
Yeah. Just
That's the way things go.
Using common sense.
Yeah, that's the way things go. So keep that in mind. The Level and the A5 are going to be a little bit more portable, grab and go, if you ever wanted to take the sound out of your office. So that would be 2 reasons why I would advocate for the Level or the A5 is a little bit better flexibility. But if we're only judging it on sound quality, Formation Duos are going to be a larger, more full-bodied sound. So
I personally would pick the Duos over the Level or the A5. Not, again, like Andrew said, not because I don't like either of those products, but I think you'll have a better time with the Duos. There's just a little bit more to offer, unless you're getting 2 A5s.
yeah. Okay, you sold me on adding the meat. This is Clem again. We're personal shopping with Clem here. You sold me on adding a Michi preamp. Why do I need the A10, A8? Assumed if the DAC is solid now, would I be better off adding an A6 or Cambridge as a transport and ARC? Do you need the Eversolo? No, especially if, the DAC inside the Michi preamp is, I'm assuming that it's excellent. The DAC inside the Michi integrated we had was fantastic. So no, you don't need to have DACs on DACs here. Would I be better off adding an A6 or Cambridge as transport and ARC? If you need the HDMI connectivity, then yeah, you're going to have to figure out a way to do that, but you could easily do an HDMI audio extractor, because you're going to be running HDMI ARC out of your TV and PCM anyway. So you could run an HDMI audio extractor, like take ARC out of the TV into a little $79 box and either go optical or, an optical cable out of the little box into your Michi, and you're golden. You're done. And, if you want a streamer, pick whatever streamer you want. The Cambridge CXN 100, whatever the new one is, the streamer that has streamer deck that has HDMI on it that we just reviewed.
The AX?
The AXN was the amp. The
AXA?
AXA was
Or
the
EX or something.
whatever the new one is, because the CXN 100 that I use as a streamer does not have HDMI, but the updated one does, and you could easily do that as well, and that will work just as well. But if you're just trying to get an HDMI connection to your television, first, if your TV has an optical digital audio out, just use that. But if you want the HDMI, you could use a splitter. You could use a HDMI audio extractor, or you could go with something like a Cambridge, and probably be a little bit cheaper than the Eversolo. So yeah. Demand. Do you have a dedicated outlet wired straight to the circuit box main panel for your audio equipment? Also, do you have a surge protector on your circuit box main panel? We do not have a surge protector on our circuit box. No, but the outlet here, the one behind me, are on their own circuit. And that is where most gear gets plugged in. Now, I want to completely redo the electrics in this room at some point in the not too distant future, where I will beef that up even more. But for now, that's what we're doing. John, happy 2025 to you both. Tangent time. Getting married in August. Can you both suggest a whiskey-based cocktail for guests? Already picked up Maple Spice Godfather, but need more inspiration. Whiskey-based cocktail.
Is the old-fashioned whiskey based?
Yes. I mean, classic. You can't go wrong with an old-fashioned.
Yeah, I would offer an old-fashioned as well as an agave old-fashioned, which could...
Agave old-fashions don't use whiskey.
Right, which I was going to get
Okay,
to.
sorry.
It's a twist on the standard old-fashioned where they use, I believe it's tequila and mezcal.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's such a gorgeous taste.
Smoky, a little bit smoother depending on your
Yes.
choice in whiskey. Depending on your choice in whiskey
Yeah.
compared to the old-fashioned.
So I would maybe the agave old-fashioned will probably be more palatable to more people. That's something I would look at.
Now, the other drink that you can do it's called the Bruce Wayne, and it's more of a whiskey martini situation, but it could become very popular, especially because there's caffeine in it. But you are going to take cold brew coffee and whiskey and a little bit of simple syrup and ice, and it gets shaken, and you end up with kind of a coffee liqueur looking drink that goes into a martini glass, but that is called the Bruce Wayne. Very, very tasty. Can obviously be influenced very heavily by your choice in whiskey as well as your choice in coffee. I make my Bruce Waynes, which I haven't made one in a while, but I use our espresso machine to make the coffee. But I have used pre-made like cold brew, like Starbucks, like you can get them, in the quart size, whatever. It's not quite as good, but it'll work. And, this is a wedding, so we have to assume that people are going to be 1, 2, 3, 4 drinks in anyway, so let's not go broke.
Yeah.
But yeah, those would be 3. But you're just never going to go wrong with a bar service that knows how to make a good old fashioned. And you can batch make old fashions, and they taste great. You don't have to make them by the glass, and so depending on your bar service, who's tending, if you're hiring somebody, I would batch make old fashions like crazy. That way you can just get your ice cube, pour it over spritz a little orange. And as much of a nice touch as it would be to have someone literally doing the orange peel in person, you can also just take orange in like a spritzer bottle and just like that. It really depends on like how fancy you want guests to feel. So, alrighty, Steve Burke. Can you recommend a TV that will still look good with subtitles turned on? OLED, likely not a good option due to lighting and reflection in the room. 65 to 75, replacing a Sony 65-inch. Wife loves subtitles. I'm going to say it. The Bravia 9 looked great with subtitles. It really did. The new TCL QM8 series looked really good. It had the backlighting control and the processing to make subtitles really pop. So Bravia 9's obviously going to be more expensive. TCL QM8, frickin' great television.
Oh yeah, the one that got away.
It's like a baby Bravia, but I would go there. I would look at those two options.
I agree. I like to. Well, we're watching with more subtitles lately, just because I'm pretty sure Andrew is tired of me saying, "What did they say?" His silence speaks volumes.
Andrew, how do I get as sexy as you and Kristi? Need to upgrade my hardware ASAP. P.S. Are you guys going to do personal consultings? The reaction to that question on the last video was pretty overwhelming. So it is something that I am going to consider. And I just have to figure out the best way now to implement that, because I want the kind of the scheduling and the time frames that I'm available to do that to be somewhat automated. I want you guys to be able to literally go in and see, what time slots I have, and then you just enter your information and it automatically gives you a Zoom address or a Zoom URL or whatever, and you come back in a week or two and we go over it. I'll probably do some private test runs with some of our friends and members to make sure that this is truly something that I want to endeavor to do. There's still a little bit of R&D that needs to go into it, but the response, I think, is strong enough that I do want to move forward with it.
I was a little surprised.
I wasn't surprised. I want people to understand that this service will not be free. And I don't know what it may cost or anything like that. But it's not like, hey, just ring me up and we're going to have this type of communication, just because. Because if I'm going to do this, like I want to make sure that I'm able to dedicate my time while we're on said call and even maybe a follow-up to make sure that we're doing everything right. And it's also going to require people to have a great deal of information ready for us to go over. This is not, if I do these things, I do not want to be in a situation necessarily where it's just an opportunity for the person calling in to just try and get me to virtually compare a bunch of things for them. I really want to be working towards a goal, working towards building something that is going to actually come to fruition, rather than, oh, while I have you, is amp A better than amp B? Should I do amp C over D? That's what maybe these streams are for. But in the consulting world, it's like, we just bought a house or we're moving in, the room is this. I want to sit down with people and say, well, what are your goals? Because for me, your goals can't just be, I want good sound, because that's never anyone's goal for a room. It really isn't. Even when they're trying to build a sound room, it's like, what's your goal? Like, how often are you going to use this space? Is this space really just for this, or is it a flex space? What do other family members do in this space? Like, what are the goals? What did you have before versus what's intriguing to you now? Those are the types of questions, because the sound stuff is easy. It can be very easy. You know, especially if you know what your budget is and your tastes and your listening habits. It's integrating the sound stuff, the visual stuff with all of the other things that make a room part of a home. And I'm more interested in that. So that's where I'm at with that right now. Sam, will Onkyo RZ50 match well with the SVS Evolution Titans to start in a 3,000 cubic foot living room? Yeah, I mean, we use the RZ30 on our Titans, and I love them. I love it. So the RZ50 will work just as well. Moving next month, and our living room is weirdly shaped. The speakers have to be off-axis, considering the Sony Quad Theater or B&O 3.2. Well, the Sony Quad, when you run the EQ, they do tend to work very well. You know, slightly in awkward positioning. That's kind of what they're designed for and, you know, one of their perks. So if you have an irregular room, that is a great option. Make sure you get the SW5 subwoofer because the quads in the box on their own have no bass. So you need to augment them with a sub, and I do recommend the SW5. B&O 3.2, I don't, unfortunately, I'm not quite sure what you're referring to there. But for irregular placement or not absolutely optimal placement, the quad is a great option. Greg, best way to get great movie dialogue intelligibility, aside from room correction, does a particular type of tweeter make a bigger difference? No, I don't believe a certain type of tweeter makes a bigger difference. Now, it's possible that the way in which that tweeter crossover is voiced, that can make a difference. It's possible that some brands don't allow tweeters to roll off as much, or they let the tweeter do its thing, in which case you see a rise at the crossover point, which some people will say that that extra 2, 3, 5 dB of treble boost results in inflection and intonation in voices being more pronounced, in which case that helps them with dialogue intelligibility. But I don't believe that it has anything to do with the material, because I've seen soft dome tweeters spike just as easily as I've seen metallic dome tweeters spike, and vice versa. I've seen metallic dome tweeters roll off, same as I have seen soft dome tweeters. So yeah, it's really in how the speaker was voiced by its designer that may result in that added sense of intelligibility. For example, like a B&W 600 S3 series speaker, I would not be surprised if someone, let's say you put a Polk R200, an ELAC Debut 3.0, and a 600 Bookshelf S3 in a lineup. I would not be surprised if, whether you overall like the sound or not, would not be surprised if you felt as if the B&W was more articulate and more clear. Again, not saying that it's the better speaker, but I wouldn't be surprised if compared to those other two, you came away feeling like it had that better, quote, intelligibility. But it doesn't ultimately have anything to do with the material. It's just in how the speaker is voiced. Todd, thank you. If you forgot to attach your question, maybe Kristi can see if it's somewhere, but thank you. Owen writes, late to the party. I have a Polk XT60, picked up Yamo S7 17B for 109 pounds. Which one is worth keeping? I honestly can't answer that for you. I can't. If you have them both, you need to do an A/B shootout. You need to do an A/B shootout, and you need to determine that for yourself. Unfortunately, I can't make that call for you, but I thank you very much for watching and for your support.
I found Todd's question.
Okay.
Just bought some vintage Sirwin Vega D1s and want to pair a used Marantz receiver for 2-channel listening. I'm looking for an NR1605 or something similar due to budget $200 to $500. Love the channel.
I mean, an NR receiver from Marantz would work great for any of the. I mean, I'd never put that with a Sherwin-Vega speaker. It's been decades since I've listened to a Sherwin-Vega, but will an NR series receiver power a Sherwin-Vega? For sure, especially a vintage one, for sure. I don't think you would run into any issues. If you can find something that works for you on your budget, go for it. I have a feeling it's probably going to work out really well. So, Max Evening, both. Your BLab 90 review was outstanding. With the brand turning 100 years old, what would you like to see from them in 2025? What would I like to see from them? I'm hopeful that the BioSound stage gets a version 2. I would like to see a new version of the stage. Nothing against the theater, their big $7,000 to $10,000 soundbar, but I think they have room in their lineup for something in the $2,000 to $3,000 range, a la the BioSound stage. It just needs some updates, so I would love to see that. And if they do, in fact, update it, I am first in line to get it. Whether B&O likes that or not, I'll literally buy it because I loved that soundbar so much. So I'd like to see that.
Can I answer?
Yeah.
I would really like to see a more affordable product offered by them.
What do you mean by that? Please step closer to the mic.
Well, I was thinking, based on the feedback I see from people who watch our channel, I think that the price of Bang & Olufsen has become out of reach for so many. And I know that they make products that cost less than their top products, like the 50s, the 90s, the 28s and whatnot. I mean, I get it. I know they do that. I just wish there was more. An easier way for people to get into a stereo system type of speaker at a more affordable price.
Okay. I could get behind that. I could.
I don't think they're going to do it.
No, I don't think they're going to do it either. I think they need something between the 28s and the 50. That I will say, in price, I think they're missing something between the 28s and the 50s that I would like to see them address. But yeah, besides that though, I don't know.
An Android 3000 ads that B&O has ballooned their prices over the years, and I agree. I mean, they've had some pretty serious price increases, even since last year. And I don't like to question why a company, makes certain changes in their price points. That said, I do think that they went kind of hard on the price jumps.
I mean, yes and no. The problem with B&O in the eyes of the general consumer is it's not really an apples to apples comparison in looking at their product compared to, for example, an ELAC or a KEF. And I kind of brought this up in a response to somebody in our BioLab 90 review in the comments. When you go buy a KEF R series speaker, whether you buy the R3 or you buy the R11, you are essentially buying the same speaker. You're just buying a little bit more material, but for the most part, it's able to be made right alongside anything else in that line. And that's manufacturing efficiencies. And as a result, the more you make, the more mass produced you get. In theory, economics would say that you can offer it at lower prices. And when you combine that with even cheaper speakers that are made overseas that use more inexpensive labor, like those rules apply. It doesn't necessarily work that way with Bang & Olufsen because every speaker they make is kind of a one-off. Yes, they can make multiples of it. Like the A9, for example, has seen multiple iterations. But the A9 is only the A9, and it doesn't really share tooling or anything like that to the likes of an A5 or a Level or a Biosound Stage or Biolab 28s. And so when you don't have those manufacturing efficiencies, it becomes very hard to keep costs down unless a product, for example, like an A9 exists for multiple generations and years, and the updates are more internal versus physical. That's why the A9, while it has seen some price increases, on the whole, it's not ridiculously expensive for what it is and what they give you. But yeah, it's price increases also come down to Bang & Olufsen is still largely sold using the old school method. There are independent or non-independent dealers. There are things that have to be absorbed in the price at all times. And unfortunately, price increases are a reaction to the value of money, in any given time, and also the value and the cost of certain materials in any given time. Rolex goes up every year because the cost of gold changes annually. The cost of platinum changes annually. And, some SKUs go up really a lot to the point where you're like, does it have to go up that much? But other SKUs only go up by a couple of percentage points. And there's a lot of different things at play. And I'm not saying that making more money isn't part of the deal, but it's not always just that. So, Wirehead, capitalism is so confusing. Yeah, it is. It is, but it's what we got. All right. Home cinema hi-fi. Goal is better soundstage, more detail, better imaging regarding change. For example, 3 R6 Meta, 3 Q6 Meta are better saving for longer 805. Look, soundstage detail and imaging, the difference between, say, an R6 Meta and an 805 D4 for B&W,
huge.
I mean, that's like that. If you can stretch it and save, the 805s are going to just blow your mind, in my opinion.
Yeah.
They're going to take
I agree.
they're going to take an R3 or an R6 out to the woodshed and be like, "It's been a good run, Old Yeller, but you got to go." So yeah. If that's the goal, then create a savings plan and set a little aside. That's my opinion. What's your vision on older DACs such as the Sony ES series from 2000s? I feel they are warmer than the Cinema 30. Older DACs such as the ES series from the 2000. I mean, look, older products likely will come across to more people as sounding warmer or more analog, but that may have everything to do with just the limitations of the resolutions, the formats, and whatnot that they were able to tackle at the time. Could also, it's not that DACs were non-existent in the early 2000s or the 90s, but they weren't quite what they are today, obviously. And whenever that happens, the lack of resolution, if you will, the lack of absolute neutrality or low signal to noise or whatever buzzword you want to throw on it, could result in someone feeling that it's just a little bit more pleasing. And I mean, I hung on to my musical fidelity, what was it, Vista or New Vista DAC forever. I held on to that thing for years. I had that probably for more than 20 years because I just liked the sound of it. You know, that DAC was what, from 2002, I think, somewhere in there. I had that thing for like 20 years. And because it just sounded great. I understood that as time went on and more DACs came out, you know, oh, but you can have this super low distortion and you can have this. And it's like, yeah, but I just like the sound of this, you know. So yeah, is it warmer? I don't know if it's technically warmer. That's a sensation. That's going to vary person to person, but it is possible that the older stuff, just due to the limitations of the time, could give one that feeling. Titanium. Oh, I skipped one. I apologize. Titanium, I'm coming back to you. Chris bought the RZ30 because of your review to replace a 20-year-old Yamaha AVR. Using the RZ as a processor and Yamaha as the amp for now, which unit do I control the volume? What volume do I set the RZ? If you're using the RZ as a processor, you're going to control the volume on the RZ. How you're using the Yamaha. Some of you guys create Franken rigs that I just, it's hard for me to wrap my brain around sometimes. Have you tried just using the RZ as a full-on receiver and not needing to somehow figure out a way to connect it to the Yamaha too? Like, have you tried it and seen if that's not okay or good enough for you? Because I would strongly recommend you do that first. If you want to continue with the kind of Frankenstein rig thing, I would control the volume on the RZ, and do everything inside the RZ, in which case, God, I just, these questions are such catch-22s because I could sit here and say, so that means you're going to want to turn your volume up on your Yamaha to like 90% or 95% and never touch it. But I just, man, sometimes the creativity is great, but other times it can lead to real problems. And yeah. But it sounds like you would control everything on the RZ30 since it's your processor preamp. Okay, Titanium. Got a Wharfdale 12.3 5.1 system, and they sounded great in the shop, but not great at home. I have an awkward shaped lounge. Any advice? Yeah, you're going to have to play with speaker positioning and setup. Welcome to the world of speakers never sounding the same depending on their environment. So I would go start with the manual, see what the manufacturer's recommended setup is, start there. And then like I was telling a previous commenter, you're going to want to experiment with your seating position in relation. First, put the speakers where you think they have to go. Start there. And then try and get their positioning relative to your front and side walls based on the manual. And then from there, really experiment with your seating position going forwards and backwards, 6 inches at a time, and see if you notice any differences. And then if you kind of notice something by doing that, then start playing with your speakers closer together, further apart. And then hopefully you come to a better kind of result, a better result. But you're going to have to play with placement, because what you're experiencing is the difference in the speaker room listening position relationship from your dealer to your home. That's it. The speakers aren't bad. It's just welcome to a new environment. Clem, almost 1 Eastern, the 2-hour mark, as we call it, halfway. Oh, that's funny. Well, Clem, I'm caught up, so joke's on you, buddy. I could call it right here. But we will hang out, I think, for probably another 20 or 30 minutes tops, because we can't do the 3-4 hours today. We can't, because starting at around now, we could be in a logistics nightmare. We've got a lot of things arriving today. And so I can't be on the stream when those things happen. So, yeah. Let's see. Oh no.
What
Vadim, yes, Vadim, please hope your children are well. Escape from school.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
6 years old? Doing that? Wow, that's...
I ditched a lot. I don't think I wasn't 6 when I ditched, but I set records in high school.
Oh man, the first time I ever skipped school, I was a senior in high school. I know. I can't believe it either. My best friend in high school, we decided to skip at the last second because I had to go pick her up because her car wouldn't start. And we were literally going to, we were almost driving into our school down the street to get to our school. And I was like, do you want to skip? And she was like, are you serious? And we pulled over into a neighborhood and had a whole discussion about, would we do this? And we did. We went to the mall. We went to Chili's. We had their cheese fries, which were my favorite thing as a, 17-year-old. And guess what? We got caught. We got caught big time. Everybody was upset. There were bolos out on us. Yep. The school called my friend's mom, who said, well, Kristi picked her up this morning. You're telling me, oh my God, what happened? And she thought the worst immediately because I guess we were just total angels. And yeah, got Saturday school, 2 Saturday schools, had to run a bunch with my coach. Mm-hmm. She was pretty cool about it. We had to go run lines out on the football field, and she was laughing about it the whole time. Thankfully, she didn't make us run too many, but that was our punishment. And you know what? After that, I realized I could write my own excuses because of my age. And I was like, you telling me I could have been doing this the whole time? And so that's what happened. If I didn't want to go to school, I wrote a note and said I was sick. And they accepted it. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, my voice has always kind of been down here. So sorry, Dad, if you're watching, but I just called in as him.
That's genius.
I'm not proud of it, but yeah, I skipped a lot of school. And I failed out of my first attempt at college because I just didn't go. I still feel bad about that to this day. I mean, I was a little punk. I was a little punk ass when I got confronted because the university called my folks, letting them know that I was on academic probation, or I was no longer invited to be a student there. Because I literally just didn't go. But
in your defense, you were going through some,
yeah,
traumatic times.
In my defense, yeah, I probably wasn't mentally ready to be anywhere outside of. Probably should have been in a freaking psych ward, but whatever. But yeah, I felt really bad. As I've gotten older, I've felt more and more guilty for spending my father's money like that, where he thought I was getting an education and I wasn't. But I'd like to think that I've made it up to them in making something of myself and getting back on my feet and all that. But yeah, junior year of high school through my first attempt at college, I was bad. I was really bad. But then, when I got to Art Center, I got criticized like crazy at Art Center because I was too driven. I was too dedicated. I was too, I wasn't enjoying my college years because I was so focused on work.
Who said that about you?
Oh, a lot of my classmates.
Oh, okay.
And, because Art Center's a little private college, so my graduating class was 12 people, and I went through school with those same 12 people. And Yeah, they were all like, you need to loosen up and this and that. And what I was trying to explain to them is like, I only have like X amount of loan money that's going to allow me to be here for only a short period of time. And so I have to either figure out how to graduate a 4-year program in like 2.5 years, or I have to make myself indispensable in terms of my work and what I'm able to create in 2.5 years, that I'm hireable without a degree. I mean, that was the strategy, because I had burned every bridge up until that point, getting into in an art center, as far as like family ties and stuff like that. So it was like I had some cosign student loans and I had to make it work. And so, yeah, life at 19, 20 years old smacked me real hard in the mouth, and I got real serious real fast. But yeah, admittedly, from like 17 to 19, 17 to 20, oh, absolute train wreck of a human being.
You turned out okay though, babe.
Yeah. All right. So I see that because I got off on a tangent, I got behind. So let's see here. Clem, okay, weigh in on the Bose news and what this means. I read the article yesterday or day before. It would appear that Macintosh is releasing, letting go, firing, whatever word you want to use, all of their independent dealers. I don't know exactly, though, what that means. It's kind of vague language. I don't know what constitutes an independent dealer versus one that is more direct. That was not really clear. What does it mean? Could mean any number of things. It could mean that, they're hunkering down and they're putting together a new go-to-market, if you will, strategy, and trying to control more of the information chain of distribution. To be honest, while I never want to see anyone lose any portion of their livelihood for any reason, I also think that while I don't want that to happen to anyone, if by any means you're not providing the service you claim to be providing, there's always a possibility that maybe a few people or dealers or businesses needed to be culled. I don't know. I'm not privy to that information. But it would seem that Bose sees something in how Macintosh has been distributed up until this point and wants to make a change. And maybe they're going to zero. Maybe they're culling everything so that they can have a true fresh start. I don't know. There's multiple ways of looking at it, and there's multiple ways of tackling it. Is it necessarily a net negative? I don't know. Is it a net positive? I don't know. But yeah, it would appear that January 31st, a number of people that have been in a position to represent, sell, or engage with Macintosh will not be able to do that February 1. So, Tom, hi. I have a 12x15 lounge and am debating replacing a beam and 2 SL surrounds with a 2.1 Smart Active KEF LS60 or Technics SU-GX70 with passives. Love Focal Arias, need real budget thoughts. If you go to the KEF LS60s, the LS60 wireless towers, and you're already used to active powered speakers, I think you're going to be pretty happy. Those are phenomenal, and I think they've gotten less expensive since when we reviewed them, which makes their value proposition that much greater. Nothing against the Technics GX70 with passive speakers, but that KEF LS60 is a phenomenal product. It's a phenomenal product, and I on a personal level, I would rather probably have those than go with passives stuff, because I just like the convenience and the simplicity of a really, really, really well-designed active system, and the LS60 is that. John, what movie sequel or prequel or TV series episode would you like to get your hands on to make your own? that I would like to get my hands on to make my own. As in, if I got to direct a movie that was a pre-existing franchise, or just that I want to have in my collection. I'm going to go with my interpretation of your question first because that's more exciting. When I was directing, there were a couple of properties that I would have loved to still be in the game, to be at the helm of. I would have loved to have been able to make, whether it was with the actor who currently is involved with the character or not, but I always wanted to make a Gambit movie from the X-Men franchise. Gambit was my favorite character growing up.
By the way, John confirms direct.
Okay. I always wanted to make a Gambit movie, and have wanted to make a Gambit movie ever since Uncanny X-Men 216, where he made his first appearance. That character to me was so intriguing. So I would have loved to do a Gambit movie. I always had a concept for a Batman movie in my head that I think would have been fun. But to be honest with you, the Batman, the recent one with Robert Pattinson, is more along the lines of how I saw a Batman movie going. And one of my outlines that I had done just for fun for me, and my mood board of what I would have done with a Batman, was very much in line with how they handled it. Because I always wanted to put Batman kind of in the Seven universe, if that makes sense. So maybe I don't need to do a Batman now. But I would have loved to do a Gambit movie. Never cared to do like Star Wars or anything like that. Yeah, I don't know.
What's something you've watched recently that you would have a different take on? I know there's bound to be a million examples.
Everything.
Yeah.
There was one movie we were watching recently where I was like, oh, if they had just done this, it would have been better. I can tell you which movie I really wish now, because I do like the movie, but I see it completely differently. And that's the movie Passengers. I love that concept so much. The movie was overhyped, and ultimately I don't think it delivered, but I love the concept of Passengers so much that I would love to have redone that. I love disaster movies. I really do. So whether I remade or I would just have loved to have played in that genre as well. Twisters, I had a completely different script for. As we were watching Twisters, the new one with Walmart Tom Cruise.
I feel like we just had a discussion about something we've watched.
Yeah.
And how we both would have done it differently, but I don't remember what it was.
Twisters
It wasn't Twisters.
I know, but in real time, I was rewriting Twisters verbally in real time, because the sequel to Twisters writes itself. And the fact that they didn't do that, I'm like, what? So I would love to have revisited that. Gladiator 2 could have been so much different, so much better. I don't know. Gosh, I'm trying to think. But yeah, oddly enough, like when I was directing, there was a film that I was being looked at to direct that was from Oprah's book club. And I was one of the directors that they were looking at. I really wished I had been able to make that film. I think it would have been a lot of fun. Not a lot of, I mean, the subject matter was dark. But I was really hopeful that I would have gotten to make that movie, but because of the financial collapse of the economy and studios pulling back from greenlighting things, the project just went into turnaround and fell apart. But it was a book called Cage of Stars. That was a Oprah book club bestseller. And I was working with the screenwriter to adapt that, because I was being considered to direct it. And we spent a lot of time on that, and I really liked that story a lot. And I would have loved the opportunity to direct something that I hadn't been directly involved with necessarily. Like it's a story I came up with. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. But I am trying to remember.
I know, what was
what
the
it was.
conversation?
I don't remember what it was. It'll hit me. It'll hit me. Currently have the Magnet Cinema Ultra for my 5.1.2 system paired with the Marantz 8015. I'm debating getting the Arundel 1723 monitors. Help me decide. Again, Daniel, and to the rest of the class, why? What about what you have are you feeling is lacking? Because nothing against Arundel. They make great speakers, but some of the things that you guys write, and I'm not picking on you, Daniel, please don't think that I'm picking on you, but some of the things that you guys write in saying, I'm thinking of making a switch, I can point to the number of reviews or videos that have been created about the thing you're making a switch to. And I wonder if you would be thinking of making a switch to those products 6 months prior. This time last year when no one was talking about this. I mean, it's happened with Arundel. It's happened with Perlisten. It happens with SVS. Anytime someone comes out with something new, it's like, I'm thinking of making a switch. Are you? Or is the fever pitch of this release, this noise, making you think that you have to? Not to say that Arundel won't give you something different than what you have, but if what you have is A, paid for, B, you like it, and you didn't have the nerve, the urge to change 6 weeks ago, ask yourself why you have that urge today. Because I can't help you decide. I can't. I've never heard the 1723, so I don't even have a basis of comparison. That's why my advice to you, my reaction to your question is the way that it is. Because I really feel like...
Daniel says, not sure if I'm missing something. Do you still recommend the Magnet Cinema?
Yes, there's nothing wrong with them.
We haven't had them in
We haven't had them
ages,
in
but-
ages, and I don't know if they're still currently sold in the U.S. or not. But if they are and you have them, they're still great. They're still fantastic. A speaker doesn't stop being good unless there's something wrong with it. A speaker doesn't stop being good just, years after the fact. So my recommendations, especially for a speaker like that provided me with so much happiness, is going to remain unchanged unless I hear otherwise. That from people like yourself, like, oh, well, the drivers are falling out. Whoa, wait, what? That's a hypothetical that never happened to me. But yeah, I still think that's a great speaker package.
Daniel says maybe the lack of bass the Magnet have since the frequency is 80 hertz.
I mean, they need a sub, but he has 2 subs. So if you have 2 subs and it's filling in just fine, again, what do you need more of? So, Philbert writes, may I open a can of worms? Oh boy. To your ears, do pure streamers, ones without DACs, make a difference? Some well-known YouTubers seem to think so. If I'm using a streamer as a transport, meaning it is accessing things wirelessly or wired and taking that digital information and pumping that digital information digitally down to a preamp or DAC. If everything is equal, I have never come away from a transport in the digital realm. Not transport I know a CD is technically a transport, CD player or Blu-ray, but I've never come away from a streaming transport situation where everything's left in the digital realm, where I have had a night and day different experience. assuming that everything else is equal down the line. Now, if people are saying that, well, this streamer A sounds different than streamer B because they're going out the analog outputs of that streamer, that's different. You could be reacting to any number of things because at that point you are doing a digital to analog conversion. But if it's a streamer that has coaxial and optical only outputs and are relying on a different DAC, aside from user experience, like, oh, I like Cambridge's app better than WIM or something, Node or Blue Sound's app better than whatever, or whatever app streaming service, like Amazon has this that I like versus Tidal, and you have to take into consideration variations in those platforms. You may be reacting to differences in those platforms, not in differences in the streamer. So there's a few variables that you have to isolate here. But if we're comparing the same track on the same platform, so let's say Piano Man, Billy Joel played through Tidal in 3 streamers, all connected using an optical cable to the same preamp, all level matched, blah, blah, blah. No, I don't believe that those 3 would make it out of a double blind as statistically being able to go, yep, A is this one, B is that one, C is that one. I don't think statistically it passes that test. That's just my opinion, because I've never, with statistical accuracy on a streaming digital transport, comparing apples to exact apples, really had a demonstrable different experience.
Philbert says, please let Andrew know that as someone with extensive network programming experience, I completely concur with his assessment.
Yeah, I'm not saying that there won't be differences, but it's important that when making comparisons, we try and isolate and understand that the differences may not be differences in what we are saying they are. And again, you just have to, whenever you do A and B comparisons, double blinds or whatever, it's about limiting the variables. And a lot of times people think just going A to B is a double blind, is a true A to B, and it's not. It's not. And I can't tell you how many times I've sat for people's quote double blind tests or A, B, and I'm just like, the reason I'm picking product A over B with statistical accuracy has nothing to do with product A or B being different or better. It's the fact that I can literally tell there's a volume difference between A and B, So you just got to be aware of the variables. Alan, how to use auto calibration tech with passive golden ear soundbar due to auto crosstalk tech? No idea how to approach this, Alan. I have never played with the golden ear soundbar. I don't know about their auto crosstalk tech. And I've never tried to do Dirac to it. So, or Odyssey or anything like that. I know nothing about this sound bar, and so I don't want to speak out of turn. I don't want to speak out of turn, I'm sorry. Hey Andrew, just seeking your recommendation on in-wall speakers for home theater systems. Oh boy, I mean that can run the gamut, It really depends on your budget. It really depends on your needs. I've had great luck in the past with in-wall speakers, but it's been years. It's been years. I had Paradigm in-wall speakers and I loved them. Does that mean I will love the current Paradigm in-wall speakers? I have no idea. I've had great experiences with DefTech in-wall speakers, but again, it's been 15 years. Will I have the same experience with the new ones? I don't know. My gut tells me that on the budget side, ELAC debut in-walls probably are going to be pretty good. Kef's in-walls, in my limited but historical knowledge, have proven to be very good. We have Klipsch in ceilings, and I've been pretty happy with those. Trying to think. Oh, B&W. I've been happy historically with some B&W in walls. They're slightly higher end stuff. Yeah, it's the best I got. What is going on?
Sorry.
So my previous universal remote no longer will connect to my network. Recommendations for a modern remote to rule them all. I have none. I am so sorry. I hate it when I can't answer your questions, guys. I don't know anything about universal remotes anymore. If this was 1999, 2000, I could have helped you. But today, oh man, CEC, HDMI CEC is my best friend. It's my best friend. I love it so much because it makes universal remotes kind of superfluous. So yeah, I don't know how to help you.
Well, don't feel too bad. I figured as much, and I said, do you have another question? And Jason says, if you can't answer, then it's a thank you donation because I love your channel, and you two have to deal with a lot of jackwagons.
Well, Jason, I really appreciate that. And I just know, and I can't answer anyone's question. Like I really want to, because I know you're putting a couple bucks into this, and I never want you to feel shortchanged. But yeah, I don't even know who makes remotes anymore. You know, I really don't. So, Martin Logan XT F200 or Powers & Wilkins 702 S3. I just purchased the Heigl 400. They're both great, to be honest. They're both good. I think you're going to get a little bit more of a sensation of bigger, broader bass out of the Martin Logans. The Bowers & Wilkins might come across as a little tighter in the bass. Not that they won't play deep, but you may not get quite the sense of boom, potentially, depending on your setup. The Bowers & Wilkins are going to be finished nicer. They're going to look nicer. They're going to look more higher end visually. But both are going to be fantastic. Both are going to have similar traits here and there. You're going to have to demo them and see which one you prefer. All right. Hey, Andrew, does it make a difference sonically to have full range speakers for LCR in a home theater system? I mean, it can. It can. I mean, if you have more full range up front, that gives you more latitude potentially and flexibility with how to integrate a subwoofer. But it also could mean that depending on the dimensions of your room and your tastes in bass, you don't need one. Maybe your full range LCRs play low enough. Like for example, our Titans play well into the mid 20s in our room, which is not true sub 20 hertz or lower, but it can be enough that I don't necessarily always feel like maybe the SB17 has to be turned on. Admittedly, I do like it when the SB17 is turned on. I think it elevates them to that next level, but at the same time, if you have full range, like it gives you that flexibility. It also gives you more flexibility with where crossovers can go and so on and so forth. Whereas if your speaker kind of craps out at 100 hertz, like, yeah, you're going to need a sub for that low mid-range weight and bass. So those would be the pros and the cons. All right, I am caught up. And so I see that it is 11:30. And I think we're going to call it there because we're getting real close to delivery times. And I don't want to have to rush the outro. So this was fun.
It was fun.
This was a good stream. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope that there weren't as many or any technical difficulties.
Oh man, YouTube crashed multiple times.
Well, it didn't crash for me, so phew. But thank you so much for watching. Tune in on Sunday. I think we have a very interesting video for you all on Sunday. It was interesting for us to have this experience that we will be sharing with you. So until then, guys, have a great rest of your Friday. Thank you so much for tuning in, as always. And we will see you Sunday with a brand new video. So take care, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.
And thanks everybody for joining. We really do
Yes.
appreciate it, and we
Thank
hope
you.
everyone's doing well. I just want to do a quick shout out to, I don't know how you wouldn't know this, but there have been a ton of people who've been affected by the California fires.
Yes.
And I know a lot of people need help. We're thinking about everybody that's been affected, and there are places you can donate if you're interested in. World Kitchen, which is a group run by Chef Jose Andres, I believe that's his name. He's like a famous chef. Mm-hmm. And he goes into a lot of different places and provides need. Him and his group have been on the ground in California and LA, helping to feed firefighters and others who have been displaced. You can actually donate to the fire department there.
We did the LA Fire Department. We did the food.
And we did.
And we did Pasadena Humane Society.
Yes, we did, because they've taken in a lot of animals, because a lot of people had to evacuate when they weren't at home, so they weren't able to go back home and get their pets. So that's a great place to consider donating. And if you have been affected, hopefully you found some sources of help. Mutual LA is one place you can look at. I believe they've been collecting different groups who are able to help in various ways. There's actually a spreadsheet that you can go and look at, and they have everything categorized by food and lodging and things like that, and clothes. So it's been really nice to see all the community there come together and help each other. So if you're able, it's something worth doing.
Yeah. So
anyway, that's it.
That's it. And so, thank you. And we will see you guys on Sunday. Take care.